The hallway of the ship's Starlight Envoy was quiet except for the sound of heavy boots. Mason Winters stood tall in his armor. The armor was special. It covered his whole body and glowed slightly. It was the best armor humans had made. Mason was a soldier in the Guardian Corps, the best fighters Earth had. Today was important. Mason had to guard Ambassador Diane Wright. She was going to meet with aliens called Lumidians for the first time. The Lumidians had attacked 3 human bases already. Now both sides wanted to talk instead of fight. Mason was chosen because he never got upset or scared. This was good because meeting aliens was scary for most people. "Remember Private Winters," Ambassador Wright said. "Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not make sudden moves. These aliens destroyed 3 outposts with technology we barely understand." Mason nodded. He knew the stories. The Lumidians had weapons that could turn a person's blood to ice. They had ships that could appear and disappear. Some said they could read minds. The door to the meeting room opened. Mason walked in first, his armor making soft whirring sounds. The room was large with a round table in the middle. Earth flags stood on one side. "They're coming," someone whispered. The door on the other side of the room opened. First came tall guards with skin that looked like it had tiny stars inside. They wore no armor but carried long staffs that hummed with energy. Then she entered. Princess Lyra of the Lumidians. She looked almost human, but not quite. Her skin glowed with a soft light that changed colors slightly as she moved. Her eyes were bigger than human eyes and had many colors in them. Her hands had 12 fingers instead of 10. She looked young, maybe 19 in human years, but she moved like someone much older. Ambassador Wright stepped forward and bowed. "Princess Lyra, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I am Ambassador Diane Wright of Earth." Princess Lyra did not bow back. She walked around the room slowly, looking at everything. When she came to Mason, she stopped. "How interesting," she said. Her voice sounded like music. "You bring warriors to a peace meeting." Mason stayed still. He was trained not to react. Princess Lyra walked around him, studying his armor. "This metal shell. Do you think it protects you, human?" Mason said nothing. He looked straight ahead. "Nothing to say?" Princess Lyra smiled, but not in a nice way. "Maybe you don't talk because you know how weak you are. You're kind of so fragile, so easy to break." The air in the room got colder. Mason could see his breath now. "Princess Lyra," Ambassador Wright said quickly, "we are here to talk about peace between our people." "Peace?" Princess Lyra turned to look at the ambassador. "Why would we want peace with beings who hide in metal shells? Who sends soldiers to talk about peace?" She turned back to Mason. Her skin began to glow brighter and the temperature dropped even more. Ice started to form on the table. "Tell me, human in the shell, do you think your armor can stop me from freezing the blood in your veins? Your outposts fell so easily. Your soldiers died so quickly." Mason felt the ambassador tense beside him. This meeting was going badly. The princess was trying to scare them. She was showing her power. Then Mason had an idea. It was against all his training. It might get him in big trouble. But it might also save the meeting. Slowly, Mason reached for the controls on his neck. His armor was connected to his nervous system. To take it off, he had to disconnect each part carefully. "Private Winters," Ambassador Wright whispered urgently. "What are you doing?" Mason didn't answer. He kept disconnecting his armor. First the helmet came off, showing his face. He had short brown hair and calm blue eyes. Then the chest piece, then the arms, then the legs. Each piece made a soft hissing sound as it came off. The Lumidian guards raised their staffs, thinking it might be an attack. Princess Lyra's glow flickered with surprise. Soon Mason stood there wearing only the black suit that went under the armor. The armor pieces lay on the floor around him. "You mock what you don't understand, Your Highness," Mason said calmly. "This armor doesn't make me a soldier. It's just a tool." Princess Lyra stared at him. "Then what makes you a soldier, human?" "Knowing when not to fight," Mason said. He bowed to her, then turned and walked toward the door. No human had ever turned their back on a Lumidian royal before. The guards raised their weapons higher. Everyone held their breath. Then a strange sound filled the room. Princess Lyra was laughing. It sounded like small bells ringing. "Wait," she called out. Mason stopped but didn't turn around. No one has ever turned their back on Lumidian royalty and lived. Mason turned around slowly. Princess Lyra was looking at him differently now. The mockery was gone from her face. "You are either very brave or very foolish," she said. "Either way, you are interesting." "I'm just a soldier, Your Highness," Mason said. "I follow orders." My order today was to protect this peace meeting. By removing your protection? Princess Lyra asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Sometimes the best protection is to show you don't need protection, Mason said. Princess Lyra's eyes widened slightly. Perhaps there is more to humans than we thought. She turned to Ambassador Wright. We will continue these talks tomorrow. I wish to reconsider some things. As the princess and her guards left, Ambassador Wright let out a long breath. Private Winters, that was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever seen. She looked at the armor pieces on the floor. You know you could be court-martialed for removing your armor on duty? Mason nodded. Yes, ma'am, but it seemed like the right thing to do. Ambassador Wright shook her head but smiled slightly. Well, the princess wants to keep talking. That's more than we hoped for. She looked at Mason with new respect. Report to my office in 1 hour. I think your role in these talks just became much more important. Mason nodded and began picking up his armor. He didn't understand why the princess had reacted that way, but he knew something important had just happened. Something that might change everything between humans and Lumidians. The next day, Mason sat in Ambassador Wright's office. He wore his regular uniform, not his armor. The ambassador looked worried. The Lumidians want you at the next meeting, she said. Just you, not me. That's not normal, Mason said. Nothing about this is normal, Ambassador Wright said. She rubbed her eyes. No human has ever been invited alone to meet with Lumidian royalty. Mason thought for a moment. Do you think it's a trap? Maybe, maybe not. The ambassador handed him a small device. This will track your location. If anything goes wrong, we'll know. 2 hours later, Mason walked to the meeting area between the human ship and the Lumidian ship. It was a neutral space set up for the talks. The room was plain with just a table and some chairs. Princess Lyra was already there. Today she wore simpler clothes. Her skin still glowed, but not as brightly as before. You came alone, she said when she saw Mason. As you asked, Mason replied. And without your armor. There was that curious look in her eyes again. I didn't think I would need it. Princess Lyra moved closer to him. Why did you remove your armor yesterday? The truth, Mason thought carefully. Your people have technology we don't understand. If you wanted to hurt me, the armor wouldn't stop you. But more than that, I wanted to show you that humans aren't afraid. Even though you should be, Princess Lyra said. Her voice wasn't threatening, just matter of fact. Fear doesn't help in situations like this, Mason said. Princess Lyra studied him for a long time. Then she said, Walk with me. She led him to a door he hadn't noticed before. It opened to reveal a garden. But it wasn't like any garden Mason had seen. The plants glowed like Princess Lyra's skin. Some changed colors as they walked past. Others seemed to sing soft notes. This is a small piece of my homeworld, Princess Lyra explained. We bring it with us wherever we go. Mason looked around in wonder. It's beautiful. Yes, Princess Lyra agreed. And it's dying. Mason turned to her in surprise. Dying? Why? Princess Lyra's glow dimmed. My people have lived too long in isolation. Our world is running out of resources. That's why we came to this part of space. To find resources? To find hope. Princess Lyra touched one of the glowing plants. It changed from blue to purple. We heard stories about Earth, about humans. Some said you were violent and dangerous. Others said you were creative and adaptable. We're all of those things, Mason said honestly. Princess Lyra nodded. I'm beginning to see that. She turned to face him directly. Do you know why we attacked your outposts? Mason shook his head. They were mining on worlds that contain minerals vital to our survival. My father, the king, decided to eliminate the threat before talking. And you? Mason asked. What did you decide? I wasn't consulted, Princess Lyra said. Her voice had a hard edge now. I am the heir, but my father still makes all the decisions. Even decisions that could lead to war. They walked in silence for a while. The garden path wound through more strange and beautiful plants. Why are you telling me this? Mason finally asked. Because you surprised me, Princess Lyra said. When you removed your armor, when you turned your back to me. These are not things humans are supposed to do. It made me wonder what else I might be wrong about. She stopped walking and faced him. My father wants to end the peace talks. He wants to attack your main fleet next. Mason felt cold inside. That would start a war neither of us could win. I know, Princess Lyra said. That's why I need your help. Mason was confused. My help? I'm just a soldier. A soldier who knows when not to fight, Princess Lyra reminded him. And right now we need people who understand that. She led him to a bench made of the same glowing material as the plants. They sat down. In 3 days there will be a ceremony on our ship, Princess Lyra explained. It's called the Revealing of Souls. It's normally used to settle disputes between our people. What does it involve? Mason asked. It's hard to explain in your language, Princess Lyra said. It's partly a fight, partly a sharing of truths, and you want me to do this? Princess Lyra nodded. I've challenged you officially. If you accept, you will face me in the revealing. If you win, my father must listen to my counsel for 1 full cycle of our moon. And if I lose? Princess Lyra's glow flickered. Then you die and your people's ships will be attacked the next day. Mason stood up quickly. That's not much of a choice. It's the only one I can offer, Princess Lyra said. My father respects the old ways. He must honor the results of a revealing. It's our best chance to prevent war. Mason walked a few steps away, thinking, how can I win a fight against you? Your people have abilities we don't understand. The revealing isn't about physical strength, Princess Lyra said. It's about the strength of your soul, your truth. Mason turned back to her. Why me? Why not Ambassador Wright or someone with more authority? Because you showed courage, Princess Lyra said simply. And because, she hesitated, because I think you might understand us better than the others. Mason looked around the beautiful, strange garden. He thought about the ships in Earth's fleet, filled with people who would die if war came. He thought about his duty as a soldier. I'll do it, he said finally. But I need to know more about this revealing. Relief showed on Princess Lyra's face. Her glow brightened. Thank you. I will send information to your ambassador. You'll have 2 days to prepare. As they walked back to the meeting room, Princess Lyra said, There's something else you should know. Mason Winters. It was the first time she had used his name. What's that? He asked. No human has ever participated in a revealing before. Some of my people believe humans don't have souls strong enough to survive it. And what do you believe? Mason asked. Princess Lyra looked at him with those strange, multicolored eyes. I believe you might surprise us again. When Mason returned to the human ship, Ambassador Wright was waiting anxiously. What happened? She demanded. The tracking device stopped working as soon as you entered that garden. Mason told her everything. About the dying Lumidian world. About the planned attack, about the revealing. This is madness, Ambassador Wright said when he finished. We can't let you do this. Do we have a better option? Mason asked. The ambassador was quiet for a long time. No, she admitted finally. But I don't like it. Neither do I, Mason said. But if it can prevent a war we might not survive, Ambassador Wright finished his thought. She sighed heavily. I'll inform Earth Command. They won't like it either, but they'll understand the stakes. As Mason left her office, she called after him. Private Winters? He turned back. Whatever this revealing is, be careful. We need you to come back alive. Mason nodded. I'll do my best, ma'am. But as he walked to his quarters, he wondered if his best would be good enough. He was about to face an alien princess in a contest he didn't understand, with the fate of 2 species hanging in the balance. For the first time since the meeting began, Mason felt afraid. For 2 days, Mason prepared for the revealing. The Lumidians sent information, but it was hard to understand. The revealing was part ritual, part contest, part truth-telling. It took place in a special room that somehow connected to the participants' minds. This is crazy, said Sergeant Kelly, Mason's superior officer. How can you fight in a room that reads your thoughts? I don't think it's about fighting, Mason said. Not the way we understand it. He studied the Lumidian texts again. According to them, the revealing had rules. Each person would state a truth, then try to strike the other. If the truth was real and deep, the strike would land. If not, it would pass through like a shadow. None of this makes sense, Sergeant Kelly complained. It doesn't have to make sense to us, Ambassador Wright said. It only has to work. On the morning of the 3rd day, Mason prepared to board the Lumidian ship. He wore his regular uniform, not his armor. Ambassador Wright and several officers came to see him off. Remember, the ambassador said, your goal is to survive and win time for us to negotiate. Don't try to be a hero. Mason nodded. Yes, ma'am. A small shuttle took Mason to the Lumidian ship. It was huge, at least 3 times bigger than the largest Earth vessel. Up close, it looked like it was made of metal and crystal that flowed together. Parts of it seemed to move slightly as if it were breathing. 2 Lumidian guards met him at the docking bay. They didn't speak but gestured for him to follow. They led him through corridors that curved and changed color as they walked. Mason tried to memorize the way, but it was impossible. He had a feeling the ship itself was changing around him. Finally, they reached a large circular door. One guard touched it with all 12 fingers and it spiraled open. Inside was a dome-shaped room. The walls, floor, and ceiling seemed to be made of the same flowing crystal as the rest of the ship. They showed moving images of stars and planets. In the center of the room stood Princess Lyra. Today she wore a simple white robe with no decorations. Her glow was soft but steady. Around the edges of the room, seated on raised platforms, were about 20 Lumidians. They all glowed with different colors and intensities. One, whose glow was particularly bright and blue-white, wore a crown-like object on his head. The king, Mason thought. Princess Lyra's father, the one who wanted war. Mason Winters, Princess Lyra said formally. You have accepted my challenge to the revealing of souls. Do you understand what this means? Mason stepped forward into the center of the room. I understand that the outcome will determine whether our people talk or fight. The king's glow flared briefly. He did not look happy. That is correct, Princess Lyra said. If you win, my father has agreed to continue peace talks for 1 full cycle of our moon, about 30 of your Earth days. If I win, she paused. If you win, I die and our fleet will be attacked, Mason finished for her. Princess Lyra nodded. Those are the stakes. Are you ready to begin? Mason took a deep breath. I'm ready. Princess Lyra made a gesture with her hands and the room changed. The floor beneath them became a circle of light. The walls darkened so that they seemed to be standing in an infinite void filled with distant stars. The revealing has 3 parts, Princess Lyra explained. First, we speak truths and attempt strikes. Second, we share memories. Third, we reveal our deepest fears. If either of us fails or surrenders during any part, they lose. She moved to one side of the circle. Mason moved to the other. I will begin, Princess Lyra said. She raised her right hand, palm facing Mason. Truth. I fear my father's hatred of humans will destroy both our peoples. As she spoke, her glow pulsed. She moved her hand in a striking motion toward Mason's chest. Her hand passed through him like smoke. Princess Lyra looked shocked. That should have been true. Maybe it's only part of the truth, Mason suggested. Princess Lyra's eyes narrowed. Your turn, Mason thought carefully. What truth should he share? He decided to start with something simple but honest. Truth, I removed my armor because I was afraid, but I wanted to hide my fear. He moved forward and tried to touch Princess Lyra's shoulder. His hand connected solidly. He felt her warm skin and a slight tingling sensation. The Lumidians around the room made sounds of surprise. A true strike, Princess Lyra acknowledged. My turn again. For the next hour, they took turns stating truths and attempting strikes. Some connected, some didn't. Mason learned that Princess Lyra didn't just fear her father's hatred, she feared becoming like him. He learned that she had secretly studied human culture and was fascinated by it. Princess Lyra learned that Mason had joined the military to escape poverty, that he sometimes doubted humanity deserved to survive if they couldn't stop fighting among themselves, that he admired the Lumidians' technology but feared what it could do. As they shared more truths, the room around them changed. Colors flowed across the walls, forming patterns that seemed to match their emotions. We moved to the second part. Princess Lyra announced after a particularly powerful truth from Mason had caused the entire room to flash with golden light. Sharing of memories, she explained. I will show you a memory, then you will show me one. The memories must be significant to who we are. Before Mason could ask how this would work, the room darkened completely. Then, like a movie playing all around him, he saw a young Princess Lyra. She was in a beautiful garden much larger than the one he had visited. She was arguing with the king. They are not all violent. Young Lyra shouted. Their art, their music, they create beauty. They create weapons first, beauty second, the king replied coldly. They will destroy us if we let them. You don't know that. I know what happened to the Viridians when they trusted outsiders, the king said. I will not let that happen to us. The memory faded. Princess Lyra stood watching Mason, her glow pulsing rapidly. "Your turn," she said softly. Mason closed his eyes, trying to think of a memory to share. How would he even show it to her? "Don't try to control it," Princess Lyra advised. "The room will find what matters." Mason nodded and tried to relax. Suddenly, the room filled with a new scene. Mason was 16, standing in his family's small apartment. His father was yelling at his mother. There was an empty bottle on the table. "You think you're better than me?" his father shouted. "You and your books and your dreams?" "I just want more for Mason," his mother said quietly. "He's smart. He could go to college." "College?" His father laughed bitterly. "We can barely afford food." Young Mason stepped between them. "Stop yelling at her." His father's face darkened. "You think you're a man now? You think you can tell me what to do?" What happened next played out in painful detail. The fight, his father storming out, Mason comforting his mother and then making a decision. "I'm joining the military," young Mason told his mother. "They'll pay for my education after." The memory faded. Mason felt exposed, vulnerable. He had never shared that with anyone. Princess Lyra was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "You wanted to protect," she said finally. "To make things better." "Yes," Mason admitted. "So did I," Princess Lyra said. They shared more memories. Mason saw Princess Lyra learning about the dying resources on her world, secretly meeting with scientists her father had dismissed, trying to find solutions. Princess Lyra saw Mason working his way up through the military, being chosen for the Guardian Corps, his pride and his doubts. With each memory, Mason felt he understood Princess Lyra better. And strangely, he felt she understood him too. "Final part," Princess Lyra announced. Her voice sounded tired. This process was clearly draining for both of them. "We must each reveal our deepest fear," she explained, not in words but directly. "The room will show it to everyone." Mason swallowed hard. His deepest fear? He wasn't sure he knew what that was himself. "I will go first," Princess Lyra said. She closed her eyes. The room darkened again, then filled with a terrible vision. The Lumidian world was gray and lifeless. The beautiful glowing plants were all dead. Lumidians lay in the streets, their light gone. Princess Lyra stood alone among them, the last light in a dead world. When the vision faded, Princess Lyra was trembling. Her glow had dimmed to almost nothing. "Your turn," she whispered. Mason closed his eyes. What was his deepest fear? As he wondered, the room seemed to reach into his mind, pulling something from deep inside him. The vision that appeared was not what he expected. It showed Earth, but not destroyed. Instead, it showed humans spreading across the stars, building and fighting, creating and destroying. It showed them meeting other species, including the Lumidians, and either fighting them or changing them until nothing unique remained. It showed a universe made in humanity's image, efficient, powerful, but with something essential missing. Something beautiful lost forever. When the vision faded, Mason was surprised to find tears on his face. "You fear what your people might do to others," Princess Lyra said. "Not what might be done to you." "Yes," Mason admitted. "And you fear failing your people when they need you most." Princess Lyra nodded. The revealing is complete. The room slowly returned to its normal appearance. The Lumidians around the edges were all glowing brightly now, communicating with each other in ways Mason couldn't understand. The king stood. His glow was so intense it was almost painful to look at. The days after the revealing were busy. Peace talks began in earnest. Ambassador Wright led the human team, while the king himself led the Lumidians. Princess Lyra attended every meeting, and at her request, so did Mason. "I don't understand why I need to be here," Mason told Ambassador Wright. "I'm not a diplomat." "The princess trusts you," the ambassador explained. "After what you two shared in the revealing, that's not surprising. The king respects you too, though he'd never admit it." Mason wasn't sure about that. Every time the king looked at him, Mason felt like he was being studied like a bug under a microscope. During one difficult meeting, when both sides were arguing about access to a mineral-rich moon, Princess Lyra caught Mason's eye and nodded slightly toward the door. He understood and quietly excused himself. A few minutes later, she joined him in the hallway. "The talks are not going well," she said. "Your father doesn't want to share the moon," Mason observed. And your people don't want to acknowledge our prior claim to it, Princess Lyra countered. Both sides are being stubborn. They walked together down the hallway away from the meeting room. I've been thinking, Princess Lyra said after a moment. Perhaps we need to show them what we learned in the revealing. How would we do that? Mason asked. They can't all go through the ritual. No, but there might be another way. Princess Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him. Our scientists have been studying humans. We think we might be able to adapt some of our technology to work with your biology. What kind of technology? A simplified version of what the revealing room does, Princess Lyra explained. Not as deep or complete, but enough to share basic emotions and intentions. A bridge between minds, Mason frowned. That sounds dangerous. It could be, Princess Lyra admitted, but it might also be our best chance for true understanding. They were interrupted by a group of Lumidian scientists coming down the hallway. They stopped when they saw Princess Lyra with a human. Your Highness, one of them said, bowing slightly. The tests are ready, Princess Lyra nodded. Thank you, Soren. She turned to Mason. Would you like to see what we've been working on? Mason hesitated, then nodded. Lead the way. The scientists led them to a laboratory deep within the Lumidian ship. Unlike the organic flowing design of the rest of the vessel, this room was clearly designed for practicality. It contained equipment that looked almost human in design, though more advanced. In the center of the room was a table with two chairs facing each other. Above the table hung a crystal sphere that glowed with a soft blue light. This is a communication bridge, Princess Lyra explained. A simplified version of the technology used in the revealing room. How does it work? Mason asked. One of the scientists stepped forward. The crystal contains quantum-linked particles that can synchronize brain patterns between two individuals. It doesn't allow full thought reading, but it can translate emotional states and simple concepts across species barriers. You want me to try it? Mason guessed. Princess Lyra nodded. With me. We've already shared a deeper connection in the revealing, so we're ideal test subjects. Mason looked at the glowing crystal with suspicion. Is it safe? We believe so, the scientist said. We've tested it extensively with different Lumidian pairs, but never with a human, Mason pointed out. No, Princess Lyra admitted. You would be the first. Mason thought about it. This was beyond his training, beyond his duty as a soldier, but he remembered the vision he'd seen in the revealing. His fear of what humans might become if they couldn't learn to understand others. Okay, he said finally. I'll try it. Princess Lyra looked relieved. Thank you, Mason. They sat in the chairs facing each other. The scientists made adjustments to the crystal, which began to pulse with a rhythm that seemed to match their heartbeats. Just relax, Princess Lyra instructed. Don't try to control your thoughts. Let them flow naturally. Mason nodded and tried to relax. At first, nothing happened. The crystal pulsed, but he felt nothing unusual. Then gradually he became aware of something. A presence that wasn't his own thoughts. It felt like standing in a room where someone was speaking softly in another language. He couldn't understand the words, but he knew someone was there. I feel something, he said, but it's not clear. Focus on a simple emotion, one of the scientists suggested. Joy, perhaps, or curiosity. Mason thought about the wonder he'd felt seeing the Lumidian garden for the first time. He focused on that feeling of amazement and appreciation. Suddenly, the crystal glowed brighter and Mason felt a response, a wave of pleasure and pride. It wasn't his emotion. It was coming from Princess Lyra. I felt that, he said, surprised. You're happy that I liked the garden? Princess Lyra's glow brightened. Yes. I felt your wonder, and it pleased me that you appreciated something from my world. The scientists made notes excitedly. It's working, one of them said. Try something else. For the next hour, Mason and Princess Lyra experimented with the communication bridge. They discovered they could share basic emotions easily: joy, fear, surprise, anger. More complex feelings were harder but still possible with concentration. Specific thoughts were beyond the technology's capability, but intentions and general concepts could sometimes get through. This is amazing, Mason said when they finally took a break. If we could use this during the peace talks. Exactly, Princess Lyra said. It wouldn't allow complete understanding, but it would make it harder to hide true intentions. Harder to lie. Your father might not like that, Mason pointed out. Princess Lyra's glow dimmed slightly. No, he might not. But it's worth trying. They returned to the peace talks the next day with their proposal. As expected, both sides were skeptical. You want us to connect our minds to alien technology? Admiral Carter, the military representative from Earth, asked incredulously. That's out of the question. We have no guarantee this isn't a form of mind control, another human diplomat added. The king looked equally displeased. Our mental technologies are not to be shared with outsiders. They are sacred to our people. Father, Princess Lyra said firmly, our world is dying. Our people need resources that humans control. Would you let pride doom us? The king's glow flared angrily. Watch your words, daughter. I act for the good of our people. Then prove it, Princess Lyra challenged. Try the communication bridge. Show that you truly want peace. The room fell silent. No one had ever heard Princess Lyra speak to her father that way. To everyone's surprise, Ambassador Wright stood up. I'm willing to try it, she said. If it can help us understand each other better, it's worth the risk. All eyes turned to the king. His glow pulsed rapidly, showing his agitation. Finally, he nodded once. Very well. We will test this bridge of yours. The next day, a simplified version of the communication bridge was set up in the meeting room. Ambassador Wright and the king would be the first to use it, with Mason and Princess Lyra there to guide them through the process. Remember, Mason told Ambassador Wright, don't try to hide your feelings. The bridge works best with honesty. That's not how diplomacy usually works, the ambassador said with a nervous laugh. Maybe that's why diplomacy often fails, Mason suggested. When everyone was ready, the scientists activated the bridge. The crystal began to glow, connecting the ambassador and the king. At first, their faces showed confusion, then surprise. The king's glow changed colors rapidly. Ambassador Wright gasped. So much fear, she said softly. You're afraid for your people. The king looked startled. Yes, he admitted. Our world has perhaps 50 years before it becomes uninhabitable. I feel your determination to save them, the ambassador continued. But also your distrust. You've been betrayed before, the king nodded slowly. By another species long ago. They promised help but brought destruction instead. For the first time, the humans were hearing the real reason behind the king's hostility. As the session continued, more truths emerged. The humans revealed their fear of Lumidian technology, but also their willingness to share resources if treated as equals. The Lumidians shared their desperate need for certain minerals, but also their knowledge of sustainable extraction methods that could benefit both species. When the bridge was finally deactivated, both the ambassador and the king sat in silence for a long moment. I believe, Ambassador Wright said finally, that we have much to offer each other. The king's glow had stabilized to a steady blue. Perhaps, he agreed, there is a path forward that serves both our peoples. Princess Lyra caught Mason's eye and smiled. It wasn't peace yet, but it was a beginning. Over the next weeks, the communication bridge was used in many of the discussions. Not all the time. Some negotiations were still done the traditional way, but whenever a particularly difficult issue arose, the bridge helped cut through misunderstandings. Mason found himself working closely with Princess Lyra and the scientists to improve the bridge technology. His unique perspective as a human who had experienced both the revealing and the bridge made his input valuable. One evening, as they were making adjustments to the crystal, Princess Lyra asked, "What will you do when the peace talks are finished, Mason?" The question caught him off guard. "Return to my unit, I suppose. Continue my service." Princess Lyra's glow dimmed slightly. I see. 6 months had passed since the revealing. The peace talks had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. A treaty had been signed between Earth and Lumidia. Both sides agreed to share resources and technology in ways that would benefit everyone. Mason stood on the observation deck of the Starlight Envoy, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. After months in space, they were finally coming home. Nervous? Ambassador Wright asked, joining him at the window. A little, Mason admitted. Everything will be different now. The ambassador nodded. You're not just a soldier anymore. You're the first human Lumidian liaison officer. That's a big responsibility. Mason touched the small crystal pendant he wore around his neck. It was a miniature version of the communication bridge, specially designed for him and Princess Lyra. It allowed them to sense each other's basic emotional states across any distance. It was a symbol of the new relationship between their species. I still don't understand why the king agreed to all this, Mason said. He hated humans so much at first. I think he saw something in you during those talks, Ambassador Wright said. Something that changed his mind about what humans are. The ship docked at Earth's main orbital station. A group of officials waited to greet them. Military officers, government representatives, and scientists eager to learn about Lumidian technology. But the biggest surprise was waiting in the main reception hall. A Lumidian ship had arrived before them, and Princess Lyra stood with her own delegation. I thought you weren't coming for another week, Mason said when he saw her. Princess Lyra's glow brightened with pleasure. I convinced my father to let me come early. I wanted to see your world through your eyes, not just in official meetings. Over the next few days, Mason showed Princess Lyra the Earth. They visited cities and forests, mountains and oceans. The princess was fascinated by everything, especially the water. So much of it, she marveled, standing on a beach watching waves roll in. On Lumidia, water is precious. We keep it in sealed containers. Here, we swim in it, Mason said. He kicked off his shoes and waded into the surf. Princess Lyra watched him curiously. Swim, show me, Mason demonstrated, swimming parallel to the shore. When he came back, Princess Lyra was removing her outer robe. I want to try, she said. Are you sure? Is it safe for you? Our scientists say earth water won't harm me, Princess Lyra assured him. They've tested it. Cautiously, she stepped into the waves. Her skin glowed brighter where the water touched it. It's cold, she gasped. And it moves by itself. Mason laughed and took her hand to steady her. That's the tide. The moon pulls the water. Princess Lyra looked up at the sky where the moon was faintly visible in the daylight. On our world, our moon pulls the light, not water. They stood there hand in hand, human and Lumidian, as the waves washed around their feet. Through the crystal pendant, Mason could feel Princess Lyra's wonder and joy. I never thought I'd see this, she said softly. My people have been alone for so long. We forgot what it was like to discover something new. Later that week, they attended a ceremony at the United Earth headquarters. The Lumidian ship hovered above the building, a glittering reminder of the new alliance. Inside, human and Lumidian delegates gathered to formalize the next phase of their cooperation. Mason, now wearing a new uniform that combined elements of both cultures, stood with Princess Lyra as the king and Earth's president signed the documents. Today marks a new chapter for both our worlds, the president said. The Human-Lumidian exchange program will allow our peoples to learn from each other, to share knowledge and resources that will help us both thrive. The king, his glow steady and bright, added, For too long, my people believed that isolation was safety. We were wrong. Together we are stronger than we are apart. Princess Lyra squeezed Mason's hand. Through their connection, he felt her pride and hope. The next day, the first group of human scientists left for Lumidia. They would study the dying world and work with Lumidian experts to find ways to restore it. In return, Lumidian teachers came to Earth to share their knowledge of quantum technology and light manipulation. It's really happening, Mason said, as they watched the exchange ships depart. A year ago, we were on the brink of war. Now we're allies. All because a soldier took off his armor, Princess Lyra said with a smile in her voice. The communication bridge program expanded. More humans and Lumidians were trained to use the technology, creating a network of liaisons who could understand each other across the species barrier. Mason and Princess Lyra led the training, using their unique bond as an example. Not everything was perfect. There were still tensions, still misunderstandings. Some humans feared the aliens and their strange powers. Some Lumidians looked down on humans as primitive. But each day the connections grew stronger. One evening, as Earth's sun set over the ocean, Mason and Princess Lyra sat on a cliff watching the colors change in the sky. My father has asked me to return home next month, Princess Lyra said suddenly. Mason felt a pang of disappointment through their connection. For how long? A few months, perhaps longer. She turned to look at him. He wants me to begin preparation for eventually taking the throne. That's important, Mason said, trying to hide his feelings. But the crystal pendant betrayed him, transmitting his sadness to her. You could come with me, Princess Lyra suggested. As the senior liaison, you should see more of Lumidia anyway. Mason thought about it. He had never imagined visiting another planet. Would your father allow it? He suggested it, Princess Lyra said, surprising Mason. He said you understand our ways better than any human. He thinks you could help prepare our people for more contact with Earth. Through their connection, Mason felt her hope, but also her uncertainty. She wanted him to come but was afraid he would refuse. I would be honored, Mason said, though I'll need permission from my superiors. Princess Lyra's glow brightened with happiness. Ambassador Wright already approved it. She said you've earned the opportunity. Mason laughed. You two planned this together, didn't you? Perhaps, Princess Lyra admitted, her glow pulsing with amusement. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they sat in comfortable silence. Through their connection, they shared a sense of wonder at how far they had come. Do you ever think about that first day? Mason asked. When you mocked my armor and I walked away? Often, Princess Lyra said. I was so arrogant then, so sure of my superiority. And I was just following orders, Mason said. I never imagined where they would lead. Princess Lyra's glow shifted to the deep blue that showed her serious thoughts. There's something I never told you about that day. When you turned your back to me, I was going to strike you down. It would have been easy. What stopped you? Mason asked. Curiosity, she admitted. No one had ever surprised me like that before. I wanted to know why you did it, and now? Princess Lyra's glow shifted again, becoming the warm gold that Mason had learned meant affection. Now I'm glad I didn't. Our peoples would have lost so much. Mason nodded. We would never have known what we could become together. Through their connection, he sent her his own feelings. Gratitude for the path they had traveled, hope for the future they were building, and something deeper that had no name in either of their languages. A month later, Mason stood on the bridge of a Lumidian ship bound for their homeworld. Earth grew smaller in the view screen, a blue marble suspended in the blackness of space. Having second thoughts? Princess Lyra asked, joining him. No, Mason said truthfully, just remembering. Your world is beautiful, Princess Lyra said, looking at the shrinking image of Earth. Soon I'll see yours, Mason replied. Princess Lyra's glow brightened. It's dying, but still beautiful in its way. And with Earth's help, perhaps we can save it. As the ship accelerated toward the jump point that would take them to Lumidian space, Mason thought about the journey ahead. He would be the first human to visit the Lumidian homeworld, the first to live among them for an extended time. It would be challenging, sometimes frightening, always strange, but he wouldn't be alone. Through the crystal pendant, he could feel Princess Lyra's presence beside him. Her courage, her wisdom, her friendship. 2 years ago, he had been just a soldier, following orders, wearing armor to protect himself from a dangerous universe. Now he stood unarmored but stronger, connected to a being from another world in ways he was still discovering. Ready? Princess Lyra asked as the jump point grew closer. Mason took a deep breath and nodded. Ready, together? They watched as the stars stretched and the ship leaped across the void to a new world and a new future, one they would build together. As Earth disappeared behind them, Mason felt no regret. Only wonder at the journey ahead, and gratitude for the moment when a princess had mocked a soldier and he had walked away. That simple act had changed everything. Not just for them, but for two worlds that might otherwise have destroyed each other. Now instead of war, they had partnership. Instead of fear, understanding. Instead of isolation, connection. It wasn't perfect. There would be challenges ahead, misunderstandings to overcome, prejudices to dismantle. But they had taken the first steps on a path that could lead to something extraordinary. And all because a soldier had removed his armor, and a princess had been curious enough to ask why.